Hello everyone and welcome back to the Find Your Peak podcast. As always, I am your coach and host, Megan Morensky. And today we're going to dive into a topic of how you can make the most of your training or your lifts. This was inspired this week when I've been training in Scotland. I'm here for 2 weeks visiting family. I'm back stateside this week. And I was in a gym, big box gym in the UK called Pure Gym. If you're from the UK, you've probably heard of it. Somewhere like a Planet Fitness in the States or 24/7 Fitness, one of those. And one thing I noticed was how many people are on their phones when they're working out. And which is so crazy because like when I'm working out, I like to be like, that's like my time away from my phone, away from people. Well, not away from people, but you know, I typically don't respond to texts or emails or anything like that unless it's urgent. What I usually do when I'm on my phone is I have my music connected to my earphones or my headphones and I record form videos. That's kind of like the only thing. I don't even track my workouts on my phone because I'm old school. I prefer pen and paper and then I just transfer them into a spreadsheet after that. But it's amazing people are just sitting on their phones and just totally detached of what they're doing. And not saying they're not having a good workout, but I do believe that their workouts would be optimised if they weren't spending too much time on their phones, going through social media and just pissing around. So that's inspired this episode. It's not the sole reason, or it's not the sole tip that I'm going to give you guys today. There's a couple of things I want to run through, but that is what's inspired it. And I've kind of like, well, there's so many like little things that you can utilise that will optimise your workouts. And don't get me wrong, I've definitely done these. I've definitely fallen into the trap of like wasting time or not pushing myself enough or being distracted. And that's kind of, I'm using my own experiences plus what I'm witnessing in the gym. Okay, so that's what's inspired this topic today. So first off, we are going to cover the first point, and I've just lost my notes. Just bear with me a second. Okay, so the first point, is to know your goal and to train for it. If your goal is to compete in high rocks, then train for high rocks. If your goal is to gain strength, then push yourself and build that muscle, get as much muscle stimulus as possible. If your goal is fat loss, then there's also key components you need to understand when it comes to training for fat loss. Is it performance? Some of you may know that my background is in golf. The way I worked out when I was a golfer compared to now, when I'm trying to step up on stage as a competitive bodybuilder, is totally different. There are certain fundamentals that are there in terms of like, you know, stimulating the muscle. But when I was training for performance, training for golf, that was way different than what I'm doing just now. So your training should match the outcome you want. Some common mistakes is people who are wanting to build muscle do like random high rep classes or like high intensity interval training and stuff like that. And although there's nothing against high intensity interval training, it absolutely has its place in terms of health and fitness. If your goal is muscle gain, this isn't the most optimal approach. So making sure you're training for your goals. The next thing I see when people come to training for their goals is they don't track things or they don't plan things. They kind of just go in and, you know, if they're wanting bigger glutes, then they'll just do lower body. You know, typically females, you see them doing more lower body. Males, it's more upper body. So it's going in with a plan, tracking, aiming for progressive overload, and aiming to get stronger over time. The next thing is effort. Train harder than you think. Most people, especially as a beginner, this is something that I did. It was kind of almost like fell into like just going through the motions. And I would do the same kind of workouts every single time. I wouldn't really be tracking much. Reps and reserves, that's RIR. I did have a concept of it, but I didn't really apply it. So rule of thumb, 2 reps in the tank, so 2 RIR, depending on what you're kind of going for. If it's more isolated stuff, then maybe pushing, you know, a little bit more, a little bit less. If it's more things like your compound lifts, things like squats, deadlifts, you know, being smart with not going to a failure, or maybe even going from like 3 to 5 RIR, depending on, you know, like I said, depending on your goals. So most people do underestimate how hard they're working. Just showing up to the gym, that's half the battle, but actually doing the work, that's the other half. if you just go to a gym and you sit on your phone and you're on the treadmill for 30 minutes, yes, it's better than doing nothing, but is it really that effective? Probably not. It's a good start. And like I said, don't get me wrong, I've been there. About 10 years ago, the first time going to the gym, that's all I would do is look at the calories burned, and I would sit on the bike and, my goal would be like, I'm going to burn 100 calories. And then once I got a concept of what calories were, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've literally just burnt like a friggin' Kit Kat or something. That's a UK Kit Kat, so they're tiny. For those of you that are from the States. So a few signs that you're not training hard enough. One is you're never challenged. If you're not breaking a sweat, you're not kind of out of breath, you don't feel fatigue or that muscle kind of burning. You stop sets early. So if you're someone that's doing like 5 to 6 reps in reserve, then that's definitely something you could improve on. Leaving the gym feeling like you didn't really do much. You typically want to leave feeling like you've actually done something. And that's something I always try as a trainer. I do like to have my clients feel like they've done something. Most of them say that. And it's something that I try. It's very easy that, with my clients, we kind of get chatting and I get kind of conscious. I'm like, oh God, like I hope they're, I want them to feel like they're working hard enough. They're getting their money's worth or working towards their goals. Don't mind chatting in between. But you want to feel like you're doing something. So make sure you're actually putting the effort in. And if you're not training hard enough, push yourself. Soreness, it's not the best gauge of how hard you're working, although it can be something you can use. Expect to be sore when you're doing different lifts. If you're new to the gym, you'll probably be more sore. Someone like myself, even though I don't really consider myself that advanced, I've still got so much to learn and I'm always learning. I don't get sore nearly as much as what I used to. However, there are times when I do still get sore and I do kind of like that feeling. But for me to get sore is harder. So gauging how, fatigued your muscles are and how sore you are, it's a tool, but again, don't solely base your performance or your optimization of that workout from your soreness. The next thing, and this is something that typically we see more in males, but it's definitely something that I've fallen into a little bit, is your execution should be greater than your ego. So I always tell my clients, leave your ego at the door. Like, the weights do not care, or your body does not care how much weight you're lifting. What's most important is you have good form, it's under control, you're doing certain tempo, whatever that tempo is, focusing on time under tension, rather than just going in and lifting a bunch of weight as heavy as you can and your form is absolute dog poo. So making sure you're feeling the target muscle. For example, if you're doing this is my favorite one, if you're doing a tricep extension, so cable tricep extension on straight bar or rope, whatever it is, the amount of people that I see, and it's almost like they're doing like the ski erg. And they've got no idea. They're like, yeah, I'm working my triceps. And all they're doing is just like, it's literally like they're skiing. So making sure you're feeling the target muscle, so your execution should be absolutely dialed in before you increase that weight. Chasing the pump or fatigue isn't the same as quality either. So if you're someone, we all like to feel that pump after a workout. It's the best thing. Don't go chasing it. It's something that can be very deceiving. And especially if you feel fatigued, like you can get very fatigued from doing tricep extensions wrong. If you look like you're skiing, that can be very, very fatiguing. But you're not getting a good quality stimulus on your triceps. You're just skiing. You're using all their other muscles. So you should get a pump, or you should feel fatigue in your triceps, right deep in your triceps, if you're doing these correctly. A good tip for this is slowing down the eccentric. So this is the lowering of the weight, okay? So for a tricep push down, you push the weight down, you're contracting, your forearm is extending, you're in extension, and that lowering of the weight, so that's actually when your elbow is flexing, that's the eccentric. So that's called the negative. If you slow that down, it's more time under tension, your tricep is under tension for a longer period of time, you get more of a stimulus in that tricep muscle. The next thing, and this is something I've mentioned before, is being consistent. So consistency over perfection. There's going to be days you don't feel like doing it. I've just come back from the gym and an absolute day I just could not be arsed doing it. I don't know what was wrong with me. I'm just kind of, I don't know if it's just because I'm on lower carbs or just kind of still in Scotland trying to enjoy my time here, but it was leg days when I just could not be arsed with it. But, you just get in the gym and you do it anyway. You do as much as you can. So just showing up, doing as the best you can, not necessarily having the perfect plan, that's what's going to move the needle forward. It'd be very easy to just go when you feel like it. But if you go when you feel like it, you're probably going to go once a week, if that, and it's just going to phase out. So showing up every single day, even if it's doing something is better than nothing. Never skip a workout. If you've got a workout planned in there, never skip it. Okay, it's just like the discipline, it's just a muscle that needs to get flexed. Okay, so showing up is way better than just showing up on the days doing the perfect plan. Even 80% effort beats skipping the workout, or even a 60%. So from this, you can actually build momentum. So one thing, or three things that I like to do is 3 non-negotiables. So I always schedule my training. At the start of the week, I know when I'm working out. Yes, of course, life happens, things come up. Sometimes I have to change these. But typically I know the days and the times that I'll be working out. I have a plan before I walk into the gym. I know exactly what muscle groups I'm training that day. I know what exercise I'm doing. I know my rep ranges. I've got everything planned, so I know what I'm doing. And the last thing is you track it. So I look back what I did last time. I even make notes on that workout. Like today, I wrote down at the bottom that I was feeling fatigued. I was actually a little bit lightheaded in the gym, so maybe I should have had a bit more carbs before I went in. So things like that, if you're on your menstrual cycle, make note of that. So always tracking day by day, your body's always changing. Tracking your workouts, tracking how you're feeling is a game changer. The next thing, something I've spoken about a lot, recovery. So recovery is half of the work. So make sure you are sleeping. I'm not going to dive too much into this because I've said it so much in the past, but sleeping at least 7 hours, shooting more for that 8 hours. That just helps your muscles recover. It helps with hormone regulation, which helps with your hunger signals. It helps with performance, just everything. Making sure you're eating sufficient amount of protein. That helps with recovery, so repairing muscle damage. And you're making sure you're consuming enough calories. If you are in a fat loss phase, then making sure those calories aren't dropping too much too quickly. Even mobility can help. So if you are sore, I always say motion is lotion. So just getting out, moving, low impact training, low impact steady state cardio, things like walking is incredible. And making sure you're not overtraining and under recovering. Now this I don't see too often. It has something that I have experienced, and that was with training plus with golf practice. It's very easy to fall into this trap. But typically most people don't overtrain. They think they're overtraining when really they just need to get a different plan and maybe change things up a little bit, or just focus on their sleep. But typically people don't overtrain, but it's something you can fall into. So make sure you're not overtraining and under recovering. So if you're pushing yourself in the gym, make sure you're recovering hard as well. The last thing, and this is a couple of things, and these are more like small habits that do make a big difference. Making sure you're doing a correct warm-up, so warming up with a purpose. Whether that's, getting on the foam roller, like something I do before every single workout. I like to foam roll, and then I like to do some resistant bands, just loosen up my shoulders. And then I'll also do warm-up sets. So before, let's say my first exercise is a dumbbell bench press, I will do, 10 to 20 reps on a lighter weight of the exercise just to get things loosened up before I go into working sets. So making sure you're warming up with a purpose. The next thing, something I touched on at the start, and the thing that inspired this episode, is limiting distractions. So your phone and social media, emails, just all the demands of life. Try and just block these out the best you can. I have actually put my phone on airplane mode before, just because it does give me that total downtime. I know how easy it is, and our phones are addictive. It's very easy to keep checking our phone, especially if you've got like an Apple Watch. That's something that I will never want, because I just find it too intruding. And so if your watch is connected to your phone, then put things on airplane mode or do not disturb. So just limiting distractions and get focused on the work that you are doing. The next thing is hydration. If you are someone in a hot country and you're training outside, absolutely hydrate. If you're not, Even still, we still sweat in the gym. So hydration, things like that's water. You can mix that with electrolytes. I have my essential amino acids when I'm working out, and that's got electrolytes in it. That does help. Has a bit of sodium in it, magnesium, potassium, all that good stuff that just keeps me going throughout my workout. And the last thing is bringing intentionality to every single rep. Okay, focus on what you're doing. Focus on the workout. Focus on the exercise. Feel the muscle that you're supposed to be working. Don't go skiing when you're supposed to be doing tricep extensions, okay? And if you are struggling, then I suggest recording yourself, checking your form, dropping the weight, and really focus on squeezing that target muscle. For the first 2 or 3 months of my bodybuilding prep, I did a ton of low weight, high tempo, so maybe 3 to 6 second eccentrics, and squeezing that target muscle. And what that does, it helps with your mind-muscle connection, and it helps stimulate the right muscle you're supposed to be working. So bring intentionality to every single rep, and then focus on increasing the weights. Things like your compound list where you're using multiple muscles, so like a bench press or a squat. You've got your muscles that are mainly working, so it's your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings. It's very difficult to feel them totally isolated. So don't worry too much on that. Just make sure your form is good. But if you're doing something like a tricep push down, you should be feeling this directly into your triceps. Okay. Some common mistakes that I see people make is having kind of random workouts mentality. So like I said, they'll kind of go in and they'll do a leg day and then just kind of bounce around. They'll do a leg press, leg extension, leg curl, which again is all great. But make sure you've got some sort of thought behind your workouts. If you're wanting to grow your quads, then maybe shove them to the front of your workouts. Have intentionality behind the amount of reps you're doing, the amount of sets you're doing. Don't really fall into the trap of just random workouts or finding a random workout online. Okay, you can take that as a template, but then kind of change things up to suit what you're trying to work on, to suit your goals. The next mistake I see is people never progressing with the weights. If you've got a good plan in place, then make sure you're tracking your weights and aiming for progressive overloads. That's progressing over time. Okay, make sure you have good form before you increase those weights. The next mistake, and I've mentioned this again, doing too much cardio for their goal. For some reason, that is people think that cardio is going to give them abs and it's going to make them lose weight. You will lose weight, but you won't get the look you want. You need to build muscle. Cardio absolutely has its place, but typically it's not the answer for our goals. Next one is switching programs too often. This is something that I can kind of get into. I can be quite analytical, and if something's not working, I'm like, oh goodness, I need to change this up and do this instead. Make small tweaks week over week. You don't really want to be switching programs all the time. Okay, so have a program and make changes as you go, as you progress, but stay to the same program for a while. I give my clients mesos that last, anything from as minimum as 4, anything up to 12 weeks, depending on their goals. You can even arguably go a little bit longer. However, I would have some change in there. So making sure you are changing or tweaking things, but not switching from program to program too often. And lastly is not eating enough to train well. Food is fuel. Make sure you are fueling your workouts. Especially if your goal is fat loss, don't go straight into a deficit. Make sure that you know how much you're consuming for starters and make little tweaks over time, but don't all of a sudden just crash diet and get in and start pushing yourself because you'll last about a week. Okay, so when it comes to nutrition, there's so many things I could say about this, and I've touched on a lot of things in the past episodes, and I'm going to be doing this a lot in the future episodes. But not training enough, not eating enough to train well, so just make sure you are eating sufficient amount of calories, you're getting enough protein in your diet and enough carbs to fuel your workout. Food is fuel, it is not the enemy. Food is what's going to get you to your goals, okay? So final takeaways before we wrap this up. I know I kind of rattled on very, very quickly. I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee here. But train with a plan, push yourself, recover hard, be consistent, and track your progress. Okay, there's so many little things that go into training. If you can hit the fundamentals and then you can start tweaking things, then that's where it's at. Don't go in with a mindset of I'm just going to go in and wing it, because you're wasting time. Okay, make sure you're training with a purpose, regardless if your goal is, competitive bodybuilding, or if it's just to lose a bit of weight. Okay, when it comes to the human body, there's so much to it. So making sure you're not neglecting the areas that really need to get focused on. Okay, don't be the person that walks in and does the treadmill every morning for an hour and you're under eating calories, or your diet is just a load of crap. Okay, making sure you're training with intent, you have your goals in place, and you have guidance as well. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up there. For those of you in the States, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Like I said, I am in Scotland right now, so I am kind of missing out. And I'm sure my hubby and my family out in the States are listening to this, so I hope they have a great Thanksgiving. I will speak to them before then, hopefully. And if you are interested in coaching, then of course head to my Instagram page, linked below. There's an application form you can complete and we can get you started on your goals. As I say all the time, with coaching, you'll be working directly with myself, where you'll get customized workout plans, customized nutrition. Everything is to suit your needs. Okay, there's no cookie cutter approach. There's formal check-ins. You have 24/7 accountability and support with myself. There's none of this via email. You always have access if you need to get on a call with me, a voice message, all the things like that. You have the accountability and support from me 24/7. Most importantly, you will get results. So everything is fully customized to suit each client's needs, and I'll get you where you are now and get you where you want to be. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, I really appreciate it if you could give it a 5-star review, share it on social media, share it with your friends. It's really growing, which I'm amazed at. It's really cool to see, it's such a passion of mine to help other people and to apply, teach them, apply my knowledge and see other people benefit from that. It's a really, really cool experience. I'm very blessed to be in the position I am. So if you can share this, that would be a huge help, and we can bring more people into our circle. Make sure you subscribe. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you guys next week.